from TiderInsider.com and Tider Insider TV. Rodney, Alabama 62, New Mexico State 10. Your thoughts now a couple of days since the game's been played?
Well, I think after watching two games, I think I may have said this last week, Gary, this is a team, this Alabama team, that's maybe a little different than some of the others that I can recall over the last 8, 9, 10 years, in that I think there's just so many young players. You don't look out there and see all the experienced, great players, if that makes sense. I want to be careful how I say that. This is a younger team that I think will require more development in some areas than maybe we've seen in the past. That's kind of the takeaway I have from it. And doesn't mean that those guys aren't really talented players. It's not what I'm saying. I just don't see overall the experienced players that established stars, if you want to put it that way, that we used to see. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think it's a team that has to, maybe in some areas, have more development.
Offensively, a lot like last year, short day for Tua. The game was out of hand. He goes 16 of 24, 227, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Mac Jones came in and went 5 of 9 for 58 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. But the focus was on the run game. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Coming off the game against Duke, when Alabama didn't run the football that well, statistically they had a really good day. When you carry it 32 times for 318 yards and have 3 rushing touchdowns, that looks good on the stat sheet. But in reality, 75 of that came on the first offensive play of the game when Henry Ruggs caught a pass behind the line of scrimmage. It was counted as a rush. And then Keelan Robinson had a 74-yard touchdown run late in the game. In between, Najee Harris and Brian Robinson did most of the work. Najee 12 for 68. That's a 5.7-yard average and a touchdown. And Robinson 11 for 58. That's a 5.2 average. What did you think of the two lead backs in the job? Did they run it better, in your opinion, against New Mexico State than they did against Duke?
Maybe a little. I still think, obviously, it's a work in progress, this run game. I think, the interior, the offensive line, we saw some shuffling there because Chris Owens out with an injury. Landon Dickerson sliding from right guard in there to the center spot, and Matt Womack at right guard. So a little bit of a shift there. So I think that's still a work in progress, this offensive line. But I also think that the running backs, there were some opportunities there that they didn't hit the hole. I thought there were some holes there that they missed, cut the wrong way, whatever it might have been. I don't know if it's a vision issue, it's that they're not trusting, their blockers. They're trying to make big plays rather than get what's in front of them. Sometimes, Gary, big plays, they just kind of evolve when you run correctly and not try to force those big plays in the running game as a running back. So maybe that's something. I think, if you, just to be frank with you, sometimes I think you see Najee Harris bouncing around a little bit too much. You saw Keelan Williams, the true freshman. He saw the hole, he hit it, and he accelerated and was gone. So I think there's some of that needs to be, improved.
Defensively, they hold New Mexico State to 262 on 69 plays. Do give up the one touchdown on a 3rd and goal situation where they had to play defended. Shane Lee overran it, and the back cut it back on a little swing pass and got it into the end zone. A good, solid defensive performance. I wouldn't call it dominating, but, all in all, in 2 games, when you've given up a total of 13 points and less than 500 total yards of offense, that's not bad in this day and age, regardless of who you're playing.
Yeah, I think, again, it is encouraging. You have a lot of young players. I think the defensive front, Raekwon, certainly I thought he played well from what we could tell. DJ Dale got some penetration inside. LeBron Ray's coming around. Thought Fedarian Mathis is getting better and better. Byron Young, we saw him in the game some. We saw Christian Barmore, number 58, get in there later in the game. Very, very active defensive lineman. He looks to be he does look like he's got some potential to be very disruptive, as he continues to improve and progress. And So I really like that. I know they're happy with Shane Lee inside. Again, he played most of the game. We didn't see as much of Christian Harris because Alabama was in dime a lot. So, but again, Shane Lee played really well. I know that from what I hear, they're extremely happy with the progress that he's made and the effort that he puts out. And I thought the secondary, I just thought there was some really good coverage there, really strong hits. Now they gave up a play or two, not many. But that happens sometimes over the course of a game. And so I really think that the defense is right now playing well, but they're going to face bigger challenges, as you know.
Yeah, beginning on Saturday. I'm really pleased with the kicking game. Reichert, I've sat in the press box for years and asked you the question, why can't Alabama find a kicker that can consistently kick it in the end zone? Well, Will Reichert does that. He's been perfect on extra points. He nailed a couple of field goals. Skylar DeLong punted 3 times for a 41-yard average. Reichert putted once. The coverage was terrific when there was an opportunity to cover a punt. Jalen Waddle had an electrifying punt return for a touchdown called back because of a block in the back. But we know in the big games against the good teams, you have to be able to try to make some plays in the kicking game, and Alabama certainly looks like it has a special teams unit that can be a difference maker if needed.
Yeah, I thought that Reichert nailed those 2 field goals. Last week he missed those 2, just banged them off the uprights. And then this week he hammered them pretty good. Looked to be pretty true to me, right down the middle, and got great height on it, Gary. I mean, those things, after they went across the crossbar, they were still soaring. So what a leg he has and what a weapon he can be. And then also I thought, giving Skylar DeLong an opportunity to punt some, and that'll be an interesting, I think, thing as we move along. Who will be the punter? Who will handle those chores? Will they continue to allow Skylar DeLong after Saturday to handle those, or will they go back to Reichert, or just how that happens? But so that'll be interesting. But you mentioned Waddle, and I was still searching. I watched it several times yesterday. I guess they called it on. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but did they call that block in the back on Josh Jobe?
I don't know who it was. I missed it. I didn't see it.
I'm trying to find it because really what happened is I think he was the gunner, and he was coming down, and the guy just fell down, and Josh Jobe literally fell on top of him is all that really happened. And so I don't know why that was called back, but that was unclear to me and unfortunate because Jalen Waddle, I think he's had 2 or 3, punt returns called back already in his career.
Yeah, I thought it was a missed call is what I thought it was. But, thankfully it wasn't in a game where it mattered. But in a big game against a great team, those kind of plays can cost you. All right, looking ahead, Rodney, the stakes are raised this coming Saturday in Columbia. Alabama plays its SEC opener on the road against South Carolina, a team that got a little confidence back yesterday or on Saturday. They scored 72 points against an outmanned opponent, but Helinski, their freshman quarterback, stepping in for the injured Jake Bentley, played well. So clearly Alabama's the better team, but we've seen it before on the road in the SEC. You've got to be ready to play, and at least from a South Carolina standpoint, now by winning the game the way they did on Saturday, they've got a little buzz again. They've got a little excitement. So it'll be an interesting game, I think, Saturday afternoon. What's your projection for this game, and how do you see it playing out?
Well, I think it's a great next step for this team. I think it, this kind of builds for Alabama. I think, it gives you an opportunity to go on the road against an SEC team that does have some really talented defensive players. So they'll challenge the Alabama offense. We know that. You have an opportunity to go up against a freshman quarterback who performed really well in this game, Gary, I think. And like you said, they kind of gained some momentum. I think South Carolina was a team that people thought would be much improved this year. They dropped that first game. So certainly on the road in the SEC, it's going to be a challenge. And like I said, it's that next step. It's an opportunity to continue to develop this team. And I look forward to it. I think one thing I really hope to see is I want to see Alabama start running that football with some authority, with some consistency, be able to run it when they want to run it. And if they can create that balance, this Alabama team can really take that next step, I think, Gary, and start to become the kind of team that we're used to around here.
With that burst he had on his touchdown run, and it was some kind of burst. It was electrifying to watch. Do you think Keelan Robinson has earned more carries in that Bama backfield going forward?
Well, I think there's a great chance for that because he does, regardless of the other two guys, or three really, when you consider Jerome Ford as well, obviously. But I think he brings something that the others you don't see. We talked about this even before the season started, that Keelan Robinson was a guy who could bring that explosive ability to break, big plays, and we saw that on Saturday. As Coach Saban said, he brings the juice, and he does. I mean, and that's something that I think this offense is going to need as you move along. But I also think too, I think it's really important. With all that said, I think it's really important to get Najee Harris and Brian Robinson going, because I think over the course of this season, you're going to need those guys to be that 1-2 punch that we really were thinking they have potential to be. And then you throw in a speed back, a guy that can break big plays, a guy that can give it a little different look in Keelan Robinson. So I think if they can start getting to that point with those guys, and possibly Jerome Ford as well, then I think this Alabama offense could become a complete offense. And when they can do that, Gary, I think that it certainly helps Tua. I think it helps the offensive line. I think it helps, the wide receivers, everybody, when you have so many different weapons.
Let's talk a little recruiting before I let you go. Joel Williams, the 4-star cornerback out of Baton Rouge, is scheduled, I think, ready to make his announcement today. Previously committed to Florida, decommitted. Is Alabama your expectation today for Joel Williams as far as his college choice?
Well, I think he's delayed his decision.
Yes, okay.
I don't know all the details right now, to be honest with you, but yeah, I think he's put off his decision for the time being. And again, I don't know if it's something that he just wanted to continue to evaluate other schools or what it might be. But we'll see what eventually the future holds with him. But Alabama, again, it's been, I wouldn't say the recruiting has been something that's there's been a lot of buzz about lately because of the start of the season.
All right, that's why I asked you. I knew I hadn't seen anything this morning about it. That's because he's delayed his decision. We'll see what happens with Joel Williams out of Baton Rouge. All right, before I turn you loose, and clearly LSU got a big win. We saw Clemson flex some muscles against Texas A&M, but I want to ask you about the dumpster fire right now in Knoxville, because there's no other way around it. This was a team that expected to be 3-0 with 3 straight home games to open the season against Georgia State, Brigham Young, and Chattanooga. And they better beat Chattanooga or they'll have the moving vans in Jeremy Pruitt's yard next Saturday night. But I know it's a tough situation that he went into, but if you're a Tennessee fan, Rodney, you had to expect more than this. I mean, my gosh, 5-7 a year ago, they did manage to win at Auburn, and to come out and lose to Georgia State and Brigham Young at home to start your season, this is about as bad as it gets, isn't it?
Yeah, especially when you consider, didn't they finish their season last year with 2 blowout losses to Missouri and Vanderbilt?
They did.
They come back. Then they come back this year, and they've lost these 2. That's 4 straight losses, 2 blowouts, 2 losses to start the season with teams that, listen, Tennessee has superior talent to those teams. I'm not really sure what it is, to be honest with you. Now, listen, I will say this. Jeremy Pruitt is a great coach. Now, there's a big step up from being a tremendous defensive coordinator to being a head coach at an SEC school that really you're trying to rebuild, and it's your first job. And he does have some good coaches on that staff. We know that. But for whatever reason, it's just not coming together right now. And this is going to be an interesting kind of season to follow to see how the next few weeks go. And there's speculation. Again, we're just talking speculation that if things turn for the worse, that you might see Phil Fulmer back on the sidelines, a la Barry Alvarez or some of the other guys that we've seen come back from retirement. So that this could be a real interesting situation to follow.
if something happens, Pruitt doesn't make the season, then that's exactly what you would see. I don't have any doubt in my mind. If Fulmer would have,
but I would think if that were to happen, Gary, I don't think Fulmer wants to do that before the Alabama game. How about you?
No way. It would definitely be after that game. He doesn't want to stand on that sideline and take that beating. He's smarter than that.
Not again.
But, we'll see. But it's just that's just one of those things that even as a rival, and because of the connection with Jeremy Pruitt, you just hate to see him dealing with this. But this is big boy football. You get paid a lot of money, and you gotta win some games. Hey, the good thing about TiderInsider.com is you don't have to pay a lot of money. It's still the best value on the internet when it comes to following the Crimson Tide.
Only $48. That's just $4 a month, a few cents a day, and you get our premium stuff, but also the forum where it's been, like I said it last week. It's been rocking. I mean, people, a lot of information. You want to follow college football, Alabama specifically, obviously, but you keep up with everything right there on TiderInsider.com.
All right, I got one more question for you. It just popped into my head,
okay.
But I do want to ask you. And this is, I like Will Muschamp, but he continues to get head jobs at big-time schools. Jeremy Pruitt got hired at Tennessee. We see other guys. How in the heck does Brent Venables not have a head coaching job? That guy has got to be the top defensive coordinator in the country right now.
Yeah, I knew where you were going the minute you said those two names. That's a good question. I don't know. Maybe he is comfortable where he is, doesn't really want to be a head coach, or maybe not right now. Doesn't he have a son on the team and one coming? I don't know. And I know they were recruiting one of his sons there to be a safety. That's interesting because I think he would make a tremendous head coaching candidate for sure for somebody out there looking for a defense coordinator. And there's a lot of people who say we would really like to see Clemson without Brent Venables. And that's not taking anything away from Dabo because he's done a tremendous job there. But and I think you've noted this too, Gary, that since Venables has been there, that's when Clemson's really taken the next step in their program. So who knows? Maybe he'll get him an opportunity.
Yeah, Dabo built that program, but when Brent Venables got there, that's when they took it to the next level. He's been phenomenal. All right, Rodney, great stuff. Thank you.
Okay, buddy. Take care.